There was something on when I read this incident. I wanted to answers like why this happened, what was the reason that this blew up, because I didn't think that it was going to blow this big, because it was always there. This kind of dark comedy was always there. It is not only done. It has not only been done by Samay Raina and likes, but it is there. A lot of people are doing. I There's a theory on social networks. There is a professor called Nicholas Christakis, and he talks a lot about social networks. He has written a couple of books, and he has like 141 H index. He's like a very prominent researcher. So I was going through a lecture. That was a like 10 years old lecture he gave in Yale University, and he talked about social networks in that. So I just wanted to give a like a brief summary or like brief idea. There were very good insights in his lecture. So on talking about social networks, he talked about social networks have different kinds of structures. There are some characteristics of social networks like the number of people you are connected to, like every people. He defined as a social network like a network of social connections. Like this could be of friendships, this could be familial relationship, this could be professional relationships. So a lot of religious relationships, like you are connected to certain people because of the religion or politics. So he defined that there are certain characteristics in a social network. There is one called centrality. Some people are in the central of the social network. So if they start something, it is a high chance that it will blow up very quickly. So the centrality means they have many number of people connected to them, and those people in turn also connected. They are connected to many number of people. So there is a position of the people in the social network. There is a centrality, and there is a transitivity. So transitivity means that if I have like two three friends, are they also friends with each other? So is there a mutual friendship? Is there a mutual connections? That is a transitivity in a social network. So what he said ki if there is a social network with a lot of transitivity, there is a chance that anything that is given to the network, it does not spread very quickly. So it will, because it revolves within the same structures, within the same groups, and then it spreads slowly. But one insight that I got from his lecture was that a lot of that how we build our social networks, who are our social networks, a lot of it depends on genes. So a lot of it is hereditary. So it said ki all the characteristics that I talked about, centrality, transitivity, and this degree of the node, like how many friendships of how many social relationship you have. 50% of all of it, almost 50% depends on heredity, on your genes. So one insight is that the reason that we all are here together is probably the reason of that is that we have more common genes than other people who are not here. We have more common in our genes, more common things. And then there was another insight that I found very useful, that there is a inherent goodness in a social network, and social network magnifies anything that is given to it. So we talked about he has done a lot of experiments, a lot of RCTs, random control trials, and a lot of things. So we have heard this phenomena like do good to someone and ask them to do good to another person. So we have seen a lot of movies and a lot of places, and he says that it actually works. It actually works biologically and scientifically. So he has done a lot of experiments, and he says that this kind of reciprocity, that of goodness, of kindness, it exists in a social network, and it exists not only like if we I do someone good, they will do not to one person, but they consistently over the time this effect persists. So they will go to anyone that is in their social network. They will be more kinder to them. So this kind of like goodness and kindness can be magnified in a social network if we start doing it. That was a very good insight that I found. So I mean, from there we can now start the discussion, like if the network works as a magnifying glass, then anything given to it, it is going to be it is going to blow up. Talking about the case of the this India's Got Latent, I think there are many factors at play. The centrality of the person who started, and the network how it is. Because in YouTube, we only how do we share content in YouTube? We watch a video and we share through WhatsApp or other sources. So we share among our own group of friends. So there is a lot of transitivity. But in a network like Twitter, there is a very less transitivity. So there is a random followers, random connections, random people see your views on a certain post. So there is a very less transitivity, and that's why it spreads very quickly. So I think there are a lot of factors at play why it happened, and we can talk about how these things like how people's views and how views of the society of a section of a society affect us individually, culturally, and then if it blew up, it can affect the whole political situation around us.
I second that the thing that you said about inherent goodness in social media, it is actually, I mean, mathematically backed as well. Like there was some game theory experiment that took place in back days. Everyone was asked to develop some sort of program. The program was based upon that of steal or split. That inherent goodness part is that um, the program that won among like 200 other programs was the one which was most generous but not forgiving, right? It used to forgive seldom, but it was generous as well. I mean, it is mathematically backed as well. The other thing that I want to say is that morality is not objective. It is decided by the mass. So if and mass is easily influenced. So if someone triggers something, maybe it might be a wrong notion, and the mass has been triggered and the mass is influenced, then morality will be that, no matter what how wrong it is. So I mean, this is one point to think about, that whatever they are talking about morality might not be the morality in actual. I mean, it is a very subjective thing. So, second thing was this, and third was obviously traction. The politicians jumping in, the media showing things. Everything is for traction nowadays because everything is being monetized. Social network, everything is free, but the product is the people, right? So, the more views they get, the more traction they get, the more money they'll make. So at the end, it all comes down to economics. So yeah, at the end goal of everyone is economics. So the politicians jumping in, at the end they'll be benefiting from it. They are getting traction somewhere, and they'll probably win elections where they did some action over this. And in some particular cases where they don't act, it is because they are already getting money indirectly. I mean, directly from the culprit itself. Could be. So money plays a very important role, I think, in everything. Social media doesn't really work upon algorithms alone. There are controllable forces in it which are driven by money. So if you have money, you can suppress anything. If you don't have money, you can't do anything. And if you are dependent upon solemnly the algorithmic part of it, just hope that it doesn't blow up. Then it will be out of your hands. I think economics and morality and the inherent goodness.
Hmm. And you also talked about moral policing, like how one thing triggers and one impetus is given, and then it triggers the whole notion of moral policing on social media. But I mean, I think it's sad because in general there is a lot of opinions when a social media is stable. There is a lot of opinions. There is a lot of types of moral suggesting. But when certain section of on social media they come together and then they make a certain code of moral, and because other people are not thinking about it, it gets pushed very quickly without force.
I definitely agree with what Vishwa said because the fact is that we cannot talk about this topic without acknowledging the fact that capitalism plays a huge role in determining what should happen, especially in terms of the social media. Their entire business model works on the fact that the number of clicks and number of likes, number of shares these things are getting. And if somebody is able to influence these things with money, I think, I mean, it determines what is going viral, what is not going viral, these definitions. And being said that, I would also track back into what you said, Digvijay, the notion of centrality in this social network theory. So if we are particularly looking into what this beer bicep said and who the audience of this beer biceps are, beer biceps have influenced a particular kind of audience, like every other influencers have. And because of the nature of the audience itself, this issue got out of his hand. There were studies which pointed out that it's not that the person comes, he changes the opinion of people and influence people. It is also true that person comes, he knows the mindset of people, he appeals to that people, and he catch the people's attention because he is talking something that the people want to hear. So this kind of thing is also there when it comes to Beer Bicep. And the morality they were following was hurt by his comment when he was on a particular kind of a platform. He was on a different kind of setup addressing different kind of audience. And as you said, it gained more traction in Twitter, which has a wider.
What you said ki the audience of the beer biceps and audience of Samir and I think they were quite different. That's what you were trying to say. And I agree
Yes,
that beer biceps, the kind of podcast he do, the kind of questions he ask in podcast, the central idea that drives his questions is like virality factor, like what he asks that can become a viral. And what he can ask that make the other person say something that he has not spoken before. So I think that is his idea of asking those questions. And I think that was maybe you can say ignorance on his part, that he tried to do the same thing with a different set of audience, because the audience of Samir Raina, I think at that time Samir Raina had a lot of focus on it because he was just growing with a very rapid speed, and everyone had their eyes on him, that why he's growing so much.
So I will touch on three main points. So firstly, when it comes to Ranveer, I don't even think that was his joke. I think, like, as far as I have seen his podcast, I am 100% sure he must have told his management team, find one good joke from the net which I can crack on Samarana to look cool. I think that was his motive. And like, I have been on the internet since 2015. These kind of jokes were cracked by UK YouTubers in 2016. So it's not even ki he has come up with something very authentic to offend anyone. So that is first of all copied. Secondly, what Vishwas told, I agree. I think if Samay Raina's episodes had come on some OTT platform instead of free on YouTube, I think the backlash would have been less, because it's at the end of the day, it's about money. I'm sure the OTT platform would have paid people to tweet in support of Samay Raina and Ranveer Alabadia there, and then you'd have seen a different like change in public opinion. And lastly, I think as far as like this morality thing goes, I think one important is consent. Like, I have friends who abuse me, like sort of abuse, but that is an unwritten rule that you can give me abuses, I can abuse you back. But what Ranveer did was that he, first of all, he expanded everything in English, like, he wanted to explain in detail. And what the bigger audience felt is that he's asking something which the other participant is not expecting. But this is not the case. He had actually asked the contestant afterwards that, are you feeling okay with the joke? And then it made to the final edit. So there was consent between the participant and Ranveer Alavadi. It's not ki he told it out of a sudden. And coming to Samay Rana, so Ranveer Alavadi, I think I don't think he is that much authentic. And whatever he told there, it was like to look cool. But coming to Samay Raina, I feel like, first of all, India's Got Latent episodes, it started from a long time back, like 7 to 8 months back, almost. And there are many, many videos which have jokes which are much, much more offending than those that Ranveer cracked. For example, there is an episode with Arpit Bala. And there, you can't even sit it out like with your family or anything. So I think it's a matter of timing and seeing people being successful, like having 10 million views on one episode. Like, it's a dream for many TV channels even. I think there is a bigger play of coalitions and conspiracies behind this one. And I think it's a matter of trend. I mean, the Supreme Court has already ruled ki, I mean, it's bad that you said these things, but a police case is not valid for such cases. So I think it's a matter of time, but yeah, I mean, I'm not sure ki even after 10 years we'll be even ready for such a joke. So yeah. I mean, it reflects us as a society and how far we can come.
I think what Joe said about the distribution of audience is also valid, because Beer Biceps' audience portray him, I mean, sees him in a particular kind of way. But when they saw that they saw a conflicting personality. What he says and what is this question? This shouldn't be there. But again, he must have said similar things in his podcast as well. But people don't consume long forms of videos, long form of content nowadays, and they only see what shorts have been sponsored and what shows shorts have been made viral, and that is why they only see a particular content and they think they are his audience, but they are not actually true audience of him, and they are just partial audience, I would say. And that is why I think it blew up that much. I'm very sure he must have said similar things in his podcast as well. He's been podcasting since a long time. And these kind of questions, exactly this question was asked by Kanan Gill as well few years back. Then again, some UK podcast as well. So it was a very general question which is usually asked once in a while, and it was just for some good laughs. The laughs were there, but it just blew up. I think, yeah, economics were at play. I mean, some OTTs were reaching out to him to launch his show on their platform, and they're giving blank checks or whatever. But yeah, he wanted it to be unfiltered, and that is the price he has to pay. They were looking for one mistake, and it happened. Bigger personalities at play here. What we see, it is not just general audience who are offended. Many other peoples are also offended.
And just to broaden the topic, I just wanted to take this into to a direction of moral policing and offense taking. So I was just wondering when moral policing is justified and at what point it becomes like just nonsensical. And on offense taking, I mean, what I used to think that these are kinds of offenses that you can avoid. And I mean, in this situation, at least this was behind a paywall. I mean, you did not have to go and pay and take the offense. So, and even a lot of content creation, you can just avoid consuming those content. These are kind of offenses that you can avoid. So there should not be moral policing for that. I think real offense is that you cannot avoid something that is embodied offense that someone hits you. So I mean, you cannot avoid that. So that is a real offense. Or hate speech can be a real offense because it triggers people to take violent actions physically. So that may be an embodied offense. But I think other kind of offense like that we can avoid. It's not be restricted in a ways that we are seeing it is being done. So I just wanted to ask, like, when should we take offense and when should we start a moral policy? When it is justified and when it is not justified.
Moral policing, according to me, is a very sensitive thing. But if you are looking into the perspective of the person who is responding to a particular thing, for that person, it's like that person is expressing their opinion through social media towards a content that person does not agree with. So that is the perspective of the person who is consuming it. So there is a contradiction. How will we term it as a moral policing in a traditional sense when it comes to social media? That's the question that I want to pose firstly, because I'm a bit confused on this topic. Secondly, because you said that there is no harm physically for the person who is taking that, but there would be a psychological, harm that the person will be taking. Both the parties, Ranveer will be taking that shock of attacks from a lot of people because he's been mob lynched in social media. It's unacceptable actually. But the thing is that from the person's perspective, it's like I'm responding to something that I don't agree with. I'm also expressing my opinion. Freedom of speech and expression will come to play there also. But as you said, Constitution puts a reasonable restrictions on freedom of speech and expression on the grounds of public order and morality. And within that limits, I think the expression of people are valid until now. Because I mean, if someone is saying that we should hit Ranbir for saying that these things, then that is a wrong thing. But something is I mean, expressing that Ranveer should be lynched for this, that is a wrong thing, and a case should be filed against those people. But I don't know I disagree with this. If this has happened to your family, what will you think? If people are responding like that I don't know how we should go about that.
Yeah, I agree that moral policing can also be termed as a form of self-expression, freedom of expression. But I mean, when I think about moral policing, the first thing that comes to mind is like real police doing moral policing. So in the physical capacity, in the real life. So they have the power, they have the authority. That moral policing, that kind of moral policing becomes very problematic. But when it comes to people on social media, I agree that they do not have that authority to restrict you to sharing your views. But I mean, in this situation, specifically, it did lead to political pressure, in fact, moral to political pressure. So it ended up with moral policing with authority. So, I mean, yeah, we can talk about it.
It should only be in the hands of people who have the authority, who have been given the authority, because then that code of conduct that everyone should maintain is objective. It is written, and it is written so that our nation can move in a certain direction, and that is why we have constitution, so that we have a vision for our nation, that our nation should lead in a particular direction. But when general audience come into play and they are policing on random things, then morality becomes very subjective, and you will not know what to express and what not to express, because obviously you will be in the fear of backlash. They are very conflicting ideas, like on one hand you have right to express, and on other hand you are saying that you don't have the right to express indirectly. So obviously some sensibility comes into play here. I mean, you can't, not everyone can be sensible enough to not morally police on social media, but you can be sensible enough to not join them. The politicians are joining in, giving the reason that Pierre Biceps has a lot of audience, he has a lot of influence. So do you. I mean, you have the audience, you have the influence, and you are joining them. You should abide by the constitution and let the judiciary and court, let them do it. Right. So what do we do about right to express and the conflicting nature that you should not express, you should not morally police? So I think sensibility, that should be the way.
What insight that I derived from both of you talking is that moral policing, there are two kind of authority that I could distinguish between. So police is a authority with a constitutional authority, and politicians do have an authority because they have different kind of authority. They have, because they can make new laws. So police can work only on the laws that has been in place, something that has already been written. But if moral policing comes in the hand of politicians, they can make just new laws, they can impose new restrictions. So that is kind of tricky. So I'm seeing three sections, like moral policing done by peers, your peers, other people on social media or in your own surroundings, moral policing done by police, and moral policing done by politicians. So we can talk about which is more problematic, which can be more tolerated. Yeah, so I think in this case that moral policing done by a certain section of people on social media, then it leading to moral policing being done by politicians, and it might lead to new laws, new restrictions. I think that this chronology is quite problematic.
I think you summed it up very well, Digvijay, but you are only considering the external thing. What about moral policing done by your family? Like they are also a part of the society, right? Like they will get influenced. Your father will share WhatsApp videos of, Samay Rana and telling that this is bad, and they'll come to your home and tell that don't do these kind of things. Whereas according to you, it is normal. So I think it's like it's external, internal, everything. And like in India, there are 1.5 billion people. Like 1.5 billion people can take offenses to 1.5 billion things. So then what is the definition of offense which Jose was mentioning? Ki, okay, for me, maybe, some other things, some other serious crimes may be considered as taking offense. Like I don't like corruption in this country. But thousand people are not gathering behind me because that is not a low-hanging fruit. Politicians like to solve the low-hanging fruits like viral videos because they know that people will be impacted by it. Like education, corruption, these are all long taking, like it takes a lot of time. So they don't focus on that. And public opinion is like if you tell a lie 10,000 times, it becomes a truth. So if you tell something on social media, if you repeat a lie, I mean, at the end of the day, we saw during the Delhi riots, right? And even during the Kanhaiya case, that lot of the videos were forged, lot of the videos were tampered with. And even TV channels showed those videos. So there is no definition of offense, authenticity. It is the era of fake information and everything. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's about the politicians. Like whether a thing is important, an issue is important. And here in India, it's more about the quantity, like number of people who are discussing about it. Because here it's important to stay relevant, right? See, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think there is a solution to it. I mean, we recently had our chief minister in Delhi who was seen breaking chairs 2 years back in assembly. So I'm not sure how we will change, but yeah, punishing Samarana seems to be a good option.
Overall, I think we got a good idea about moral policing. We should also explore, there could be logical fallacies behind the grounds these people base their moral policing idea. I do not remember the name, but he was sharing this. If someone takes offense on my jokes, I will apologize to them immediately, and then they will say that you do not mean it. How can you change your mind? So he will say that you mean to say that I can say something and not mean it. Then why you take offense? That joke was also something that I said, but I did not mean it. So there could be logical fallacies at work. We can explore that later on. But for now, I think we should move to our last section. We should talk about is the effects on people. I remember Kunal Kamra when it all started, and even before that, AIB. And when I used to like Kunal Kamra a lot. I mean, I thought he was a comedic genius, and he came across as a very strong personality. Without a fear, he used to make those jokes. But all those things that happened with him, all those abuses, public opinions, I think he affected him on a personal level very deeply. He got into depression. He stopped doing any shows. So I mean, before that, I used to think that a strong personality cannot be affected by other people's opinions. But now I think everybody, how strong their personality is, how much they independent they are, they can still get affected by other people's opinions. If I'm interacting with someone and they are affecting my values, they are my affecting my thoughts, I do not know how they are doing it, because if I say something, I have this opinion, and this opinion might have been influenced. So when we do get influenced by people, it is a very tricky thing. We cannot track back, like we cannot set a context. A lot of things that affect us, institutions affect us, different processes affect our thinking, but we can always set a context, we can always track back. When it comes to people, we are not always aware of the context. So this is a very subtle influence. So I just wanted to talk about how it affects individually and how it can change a certain culture permanently, and the laws of the land can be changed by the how people think, how they are organizing their views.
Firstly, there are two things. I mean, when you talk about affecting people, first are the two who are responsible for this, Ranveer and Samirana, and second is us as a society. So I feel Ranveer Alawadia, I mean, he's gone. I mean, his own whole business model was built on inviting people and saying righteous things to gain a broader audience and getting prize from the prime minister. So I don't think that his business model will stay. I think he has to fight hard. But Samay Raina, I mean, he started from being a participant in Comic Stan, and then he started during the COVID time, he started doing chess videos. And then he started doing India's Got Talent, and he just stand up comedy, music videos, everything. So I think he won't face that much of an issue. But when it comes to the society, right? I mean, Samay Raina has 8 million subscribers on YouTube. I mean, that's not a small number, and the kind of subculture that Samay Raina has propagated, I think he has a more loyal fan base. So even if 70% of 8 million are like loyal subscribers, I'm sure he will find an avenue to express his opinions even after this. It can be through online videos, it can be through offline shows. I don't think he will face an issue. And as society, I mean, it's a matter of time. Now, I don't think with the advent of social media and the kind of globalized times we're in, we are more open to other cultures, other virtues, other values. Like Digvijay mentioned about Akash Singh. So he knows about Akash Singh because he has seen on social media about the opinion of a comedian who is sitting in US, and you are mentioning that here. So I think that barrier of information is not there. So I think in the coming times, I have hope ki maybe. I mean, I'm not hopeful about the kind of jokes, but the tolerance level of people and the dark humor, I think the dark humor will not die. It will be relevant, but the way of communicating it, like you can't communicate to it to 10 million viewers. It's a problem of impacting people. If Ranveer's video, that controversial video, had 100 views, I don't think this kind of a backlash would have happened. It is because it is impacting a very large number of people. So I think with a cult following that Samarana difficult and this dark humor genre is growing currently, I don't think it's like it will end and society will be like it is against the constitution, we will not listen. I mean, you can't stop it. But yeah, I mean, you can't tell it in front of 10 million people. You have to create a subscriber, like in YouTube, somewhere and has started a membership thing. Like you have to get a small local cult and crack these kind of jokes. Maybe it's a trial and error method, like you crack jokes and then you find out, okay, no, I can't breach this level. For example, I was listening to Zakir Khan. He's not doing that thing because in his mind that moral policing, everything is all set. So I don't think dark humor will die, but how free people are to crack those dark humor jokes, I think that will be interesting to see.
We cannot avoid being affected, being influenced. Even though we know that we do not like that humor, the awareness of the thing that there is a person doing this kind of humor who is getting a lot of views, when that awareness is going to influence us, at some level we get influenced.
Um, it is okay to be influenced to some level. I mean, influence is not always a bad influence. There are good influences as well. So, and media has always had a face to face with politics, be it with politics or be it against politics. They have always been toe to toe since French Revolution. Media is a form of expression, right? And the first step for any uh, dictatorship has always been taking hold of the media, right? To influence audience in a way they want, right? But in my opinion, for the general case, whatever happened with India's Got Latent, I think the problematic thing that could have been is that young children who are very malleable, who don't have a fixed mindset and get influenced very easily, are being affected. You know, I mean, people of some age, let's say 25, 30, they might be a bit sensible about this, and they will just hear and ignore, and they will laugh about it. But children under the age of 16 per se might be influenced by this, and maybe this is a section we need to protect because this is the next generation. So, and this was not particular to just India's Got Latent, but the kind of contact we have in social media right now is very problematic. So I do agree on some filtration, but only to protect this section of audience, not the rest, because they are consenting adults. They can give their consent and they can watch whatever they want, right? So maybe just like Australia did, they have banned social media for the underage of 16 or something. I think this is a good step. I mean, there are two parts to freedom of speech as well. Freedom of speech comes with consequences, obviously, but freedom of speech should be restricted and should be open as well. We need to protect our next generation, right? In order to grow as a nation. So in order to do that, we need to do whatever is possible. So I understand if someone is saying that this is a bad influence, I understand their part. But if they are saying that this is a bad influence for everyone and it should be completely destroyed, then they are also wrong. People have different taste. Not sure why they like something or why they're not, right? So we can protect a particular section and rest can do whatever they want. you know it shouldn't be very difficult.
I know that Arjit wanted to talk about this topic, of the influence of dark humor on children. But I just want to pose this question to both of you, that how can we even proceed doing it? Should it be who should be liable for that? Should the content creators be censored, or should the parents be responsible to protect their children from such content? If we make the content creators liable, it cannot be very effective. I mean, we know that piracy and all, I mean, the content can be accessed through a lot of means. And children, they are very smart, even at a very young age, they can do a lot of technical things. If we say that parents should be responsible, then they have always been responsible for protecting their children from harmful things, harmful content, harmful people.
Oh, it's a very difficult question. I mean, age old. I think parents play a big role in this. I do think how much they are involved in their children's life. I mean, that kind of personalization no one can give. You stay with your children the entire day, and if you are not aware of what they are doing, there are ways to keep your children isolated from the kind of content you don't want them to show. There are a lot of ways to do that, but there are many parents are not aware of that, and that's why they are not able to enforce it. And second thing is, on a general level, I think government is definitely responsible for protecting its next generation. Children are directly responsible how the nation develops. I don't think content creators play any role in this. I think why should they? Because their audience is not fixed. They are doing it for the masses and their own fun. So I mean, you can take porn. I mean, will they make like thinking of it like as in we should make it children safe or something like that? It won't happen. Content is content. It can be anything, but the filtration should be there by the parents and the government. Like government has banned a lot of porn sites. It's just not important enough for the government. As Rajat said, they only pick the low hanging fruit. They don't really want to make a change. They just pick issues that are very hot and use it.
Yeah, I think then there should be a policy on parenting. I mean, an information campaign maybe, or maybe a parenting skill should be added in the skill programs that government run.
No, I think here I would say if I specifically talk about dark humor and the India's Got Talent, the audience that they were targeting, I'm sure if some kids are watching it, they have a smartphone. But the access to smartphone is controlled by the parents, right? They should have like if they don't want their kids to be open to social media,
No,
Instagram, YouTube.
Rajat, I just wanted to add, it depends on the socioeconomic condition of the family. If they are in lower socioeconomic condition, the access is controlled by family. But in richer families, they give phone and they don't care. I mean, they have their own separate phones and they have full access.
No, that I agree. That I agree. But I'm like, if I had been a responsible parent, I would have checked my kids' phones, like, or I would have cracked in some ways, or I would have asked him in a friendly way, "Ki, what are you watching these days? What is trending?" So I'm talking about the best case scenario. Obviously, it's not ideal. It doesn't happen. But secondly, is ki, I mean, what Vishwas was talking about. Ki, I mean, movies are under like above 18 children. They are rated in that way. I mean, when we talk about movies, which is the most common form of entertainment, there they don't care. Like it's not ki your parents have an added responsibility when they go inside the cinema hall. They trust the censor board that they have given this a children's certificate, so my kids can go and watch it. Can YouTube also, I mean, there is no, I mean, YouTube's policies are there, but it's the will of the creator or creative opportunity that a creator must take. I'm a big fan of Ricky Gervais, who was in Office UK version, and even the India's Latin show was inspired by a Kill Tony, I think. It's a US based roast show. So when you challenge the status quo, when you are punching towards government, punching towards social norms, I think these obstructions will come. Like even though maybe your family is fine, but the social circle, the eco, they will come across these things and they will try to impose on you. But again, at what point do you say ki, okay, it's the responsibility of the creator? I mean, like abroad there are funeral jokes also. So I mean, at what point do you stop? If you're talking about kid, obviously, I mean, as parents, you have to limit the access. And if he's an adult, if he's above 18, like, leave it to them. They have, I think, trust their judgments. And you have to trust the social, like, the normal barriers to entry. Like Vishwas mentioned, the porn sites. And even there are many, like, dark websites, like on the dark web and everything. So police have cracked down on those. And there is a social structure to protect the kids, but then when you apply it on entertainment or some basic form, then it's, I think it's crossing the limits.
So the moral of the society, or the moral policing of a certain level that exists always on social medias and other platforms, they will always serve as a entry barrier for people trying to make such content that can be harmful to children. I think that's a very good point.
But the problem is, Digvijay, the barrier is becoming too tough now. Like you can't crack jokes on anything. That is the problem. I think Delhi government has recently asked Twitter to remove the videos of the stampede which happened at Delhi railway station. So I mean that is a barrier now. Post to post videos, which is against the government on Twitter.
It is a barrier introduced by the government itself. I mean, so government will always favor one thing and another. They will always favor themselves. That is a tricky. There are natural barriers created by people itself. I think that is more healthy.
We have to think of kind of discussion that is happening at the governance level. Like, are the policymakers discussing about these kinds of things? Like, what is a barrier to entry? What content is harmful? How are we going to define these things qualitatively? And the other thing is that what are the checklists that the parent should follow while they're children using the smartphone? How are we as a state going to make sure that people are aware about these things? I mean, these kinds of discussion, I don't see that happening in the governance level. This is very important, like when it comes to these issues, moral policing, harmful content. I mean, this is going to influence the generation that is, including us, going to influence us, and we have to discuss about the same. That's the first thing I want to mention. Secondly, I would say that in terms of dark humor, I think it is not going to end because even if it is banned in India, so from other countries, it will come. I mean, we'll be able to listen to people who's cracking dark humor, and we'll be able to choose which content we need to, watch and which we should avoid. But when it comes to, the response to dark humor or response to something that we consider as dark, I'm seeing that it's getting too much, hectic. People are taking things very offensive, doing a particular kind of comment. So that kind of an attitude is not good. I mean, you have a freedom of expression, and that person is also having that. And the limit should be set after discussions and after like a law is made on the authority level. That is something that I would like to add because there is a quote from Voltaire. I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it. I mean, that is something that we should keep in mind. The thing is that we are feeling that we are the holders of ultimate truth because of the fact that we are living in an echo chamber of contents. That is also a part of the structure and business model of this network. Because of that, we are also thinking that what we see is the ultimate truth and what they say is wrong. It's not like that. I mean, build that critical thinking and understand that they also have the right to opinion, and spreading that message is something very important in this time of social media world when the world is becoming more integrated, and we should have that openness.
I remember that quote by Voltaire is even in your WhatsApp.
Yes, yes.
Uneducated or who do not have the digital literacy maybe they can also be they are also very vulnerable because especially in these times when there is a lot of use of AI, so people who are not aware of that how it can be used, I mean they are going to get influenced in the content. So and even the people here, the four of us who are educated, who are aware, we do also get, we also don't know when we do get influenced or when we do not get influenced. So I think critical thinking that you mentioned is very crucial to tackle these situations. Critical thinking, logical thinking, this should be inbuilt in our school education system. Do you think there could be any other ways, measures that we can, or indicators maybe that we can use to detect that if we are getting a bad influence or if we are getting influence, good influence? So like Joe Viswas talked that the influence can be good also. So how can we distinguish for even for ourselves, like for vulnerable people, that it is a very big talk, long talk, but even for ourselves, how can we distinguish between these two influences? How can we monitor that how we are getting influenced?
One thing could be, I mean, what are the benefits that we are getting from material benefits that we are getting from consuming this? Maybe a knowledgeable podcast will give us understanding, which will in turn impact our learning, our growth as well. So that's the material benefit that we are getting from a particular kind of information. The other thing is the information I am spreading or I am harming others around me. That's the second thing. I mean, harm can be mental harm. Third is that is the information I'm consuming true or not? So, I mean, we can cross-check it with various methods. Like you're saying that I have a photo of Tipu Sultan and this information is spreading. Just check when did digital cameras were invented. It was after Tipu Sultan's death only. So we can't have that kind of photo of Tipu Sultan from a digital camera. So that is a basic kind of thinking that we need to inbuilt into our education system. But it's very hard when it comes to a mass people we have in India. So in that level, how do we intervene is something we need to think about. One thing is like we have this village panchayats and all decentralized governance systems. We can just make interventions through that and educate people about fallacies. We should merge our information. Information is spread across, right? We should do that as a like civic thing that we need to build into people.
I just wanted to add something that fallacies, if we, if we educate the masses about logical fallacies, then politicians are going to lose their ground in debates and influencing people. So I think they will always oppose this idea of educating the people against logical fallacies because they always rely on logical fallacies cleverly, very cleverly to influence masses and to win debates and all.
Should come from people like us or people who want to make change, real change. It will not come from a politician who want to rely on fallacies to get vote. That is the thing that we know that because we know that we have to make arrangements by which we need to influence those people to inbuild those kinds of education policies into the system. That is one way. That's the only way I can think about. But it's very hard, like, but it's not impossible.
Definitely. And I like the idea that you mentioned earlier about getting influenced by the content. So you keep track of like try to articulate what good influence you are getting from the content. And if you cannot articulate any good influence, then probability of get being badly influenced will be higher automatically. I think that's a good idea. But it's difficult to keep doing it on a regular basis. So
Yes.
that is.
I think Pakistan has won the toss and elected to bat.
There is a prediction from IT Baba that Pakistan will win today.
So there was one more point. I think I very much agree with whatever Joe said. See, the fake news detection thing, it's not just a BTP project. It is actually a very real thing and should be implemented. For example, in Twitter, now we have this snippet coming, like if this is a fake news or not, right? Whatever claim has been made in the post, we see the fact check under it, and it is very beneficial. I think I've been helped. I mean, from getting influenced from the wrong thing. And similar things can be made compulsory across social media because they have the responsibility to give correct information. And startup idea. If you can develop something that can be a plugin sort of thing, which can be plugged in to your personal thing as well. For example, even if the social media owners are not adding the fact check, and you as a business owner give plugins to people who can add plugins to their social media and they can give real-time fact check, then that will be so much helpful for news, for social media, and whatever. I mean, it will be too good. And the interventions that Jose is talking about with the decentralized governance that we have, I mean, it is centralized sort of, but yeah, those interventions can be made. I think they are made, but are not very much advertised. People are not much aware of.
Yeah.
And also, like adding to Vishwa's point and Joseph's point, as you evolve as a human being, you also learn to choose the right over the wrong. Like I know many ex-Andrew Tate fans who like at one time idolized him and then realized that it's a like setup to sell his online course. I mean, and like people who are bad influences, eventually they will show their real face in one way or the other. And that's why, like we were talking about shorts and it's virality. I mean, if you judge a person on one shot or two shots, I don't think you should get influenced by that. At least watch 3, 4 of his videos across a period of time. Then you come to judge ki whether. And there are many bad, like there are few examples. I don't think I can remember one who has turned from bad to good. There are only examples who have turned from good to bad. So, like this is also a bit concerning. Ki people don't reach the path they are in. And one small trick is that if you see some person has become viral with 2, 3 videos, that means he or she is doing something wrong. Either he is like using abusive language or blaming someone, blaming the people or something like that sort. So with due time you realize, but yes, I mean, initial point, like it's a buffet of videos in front of you and you have to choose it. And when you feel like when you evolve as a person, like my choices at this age will be different from that which I made at 20, and it can be termed to the videos also I watch. So it's up to you and I mean the maturity which you develop. The main problem is that when you back your false claims with these notions of getting rich, like they will like he will show a Lamborghini and say that like women don't deserve voting rights or something like that. So,
Yeah.
and then you think that to become rich like him, I have to think in this way. This is the right path. So that is very toxic, I think.
I think it is very cultural as well. The thing is, we teach our children to think good of other people from the start, right? Think good of other people, be kind to everyone, things like that. But mostly it turns out to be bad. I mean, if we teach people, if teach our children to be, critical of everyone, critical of everything they say, they see, they hear, and don't trust anyone from the start. Trust should be built, not should be inherit. Like it shouldn't be there. Trust should be built over time, and this should exist in content as well. Don't be I mean, be critical. Think of everyone as a liar from the beginning. Why not? It should be built over the time, and it will be, society will be much more skeptical. They will be much more critical of everyone. They will be people will be, they won't be able to take advantage of anyone's belief that easily. At least it will take some time to build the trust to scam anyone.